Hey everyone, Aaron Anglin here coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and today we're going to be taking a look at the best EDC tools and knives that I think are perfect for video production. Let's check them out. So as you can all tell, I am not David C. Anderson. I am actually Aaron Anglin. I am the lead video producer here at the KnifeCenter, and essentially I was thinking earlier this week about what kind of things would I carry on a video set. So obviously video professionals have to carry a lot of gear, but more importantly, we also have a lot of different jobs we do. Over the years, I've worked at multiple places that have required me to either be the one guy doing everything, and there's also been times where I've been working on a large broadcast crew where I literally only have one job, and your EDC is kind of the same way. You might have something that is perfect for that one task that you do all the time, or you have something that very specifically can just do it all. So I kind of had to cover the gamut here. Now, video professionals will often carry around a lot of different things. I'm thinking pocket gray cards, tons of spare batteries, Sharpies, magic markers, lots and lots of gaff tape. You would have no idea how much gaff tape we go through in a year. So I'm kind of focusing specifically on things that we sell here at the KnifeCenter, so it doesn't really going to cover everything. You're gonna see me go through like my own personal camera equipment or anything like that. However, everything here on the table that you'll see are things that I've either carried or owned, or things that are really honestly on my buy list to have personally. So a couple of qualities that I think are very important. One is, having a small footprint. The things need to not take up a lot of space because space is really a premium when it comes to video production. You're carrying around Pelican case and packs full of gear. You don't want to take up too much room, even in your pockets, because typically my pockets are filled with spare batteries or, a case filled with a bunch of extra memory cards. Space really is at a premium. So the first thing we're going to look at is actually not knives. We're actually going to be looking at multi-tools first, because multi-tools are honestly the thing that you're going to see most often on set. And the one that we're going to look at first is going to be the Leatherman Skelly tool. Now the reason that we're talking about the Skelly tool is because this really is a great multi-tool for the fact that it is incredibly simple. It has all the things you need in a multi-tool and none of the things that you don't. Obviously it is pliers based, you get the wire cutters in there, needle nose functionality, and essentially I have probably used the pliers on a Leatherman more than any other tool, especially in regards to having to maybe fix or break by fixing. The wire cutters come in very handy. I'm thinking specifically when you have to deal with a loose wire. I can't tell you how many microphone wires I have broken out on set, and we've had to do makeshift fixes just to make sure we can get clean audio out. Another section of functionality that I think is very important on the Skelly tool is the fact that there is a carabiner. I like this very specifically because it allows you to mount this in different places and doesn't necessarily have to take up room in your pocket or on your belt or anything. You can attach this to a belt loop, a gaffer's belt, just about anywhere. I typically keep mine on my belt loop at all times, and that just makes it a little bit easier to get to. And of course, for when after you're done shooting, it's also a bottle opener because of course, you're gonna need a drink after you're done spending a 12-hour shooting. So you have a combo edge 420HC blade on this, and honestly, this ends up being the blade I go to the most when I'm typically cutting off zip ties. A lot of the times you're zip tying things down or trying to hide wiring, and zip ties are kind of the way you do it, but eventually those zip ties have to come off. I find this blade ends up being the easiest to get underneath some of those more stubborn ones as opposed to my full-size folders. Sometimes the blades are a little bit too broad. This one ends up being pretty perfect. Moving on down to the other end of the Skelly tool, you actually see that we have a Phillips head screwdriver bit. It actually comes with a spare flathead bit. Now typically when I carry my Skelly tool, I typically have the flat bit attached specifically because that ends up being a little bit more universal for things like tripod mounts and quick release plates, and makes it a little bit easier to tighten those things down. However, my other video producer, who's currently behind the cameras right now, actually carries his Skelly tool and has been carrying it for a long time. He actually typically has it set for the Phillips bit, but he's also a mechanic and working on cars all the time.
I also lost the flathead.
And he also lost the flathead. Being that this is a lightweight pliers-based multi-tool, some people might really prefer to have a full-size multi-tool. And so for that, I'm actually going to recommend the Leatherman Signal. And the reason that I'm recommending this one is that it, once again, has a carabiner that makes it easy to attach in different ways. Now you can also carry it in your pocket via pocket clip. You can also keep it in the pouch that comes with the multi-tool. But for the most part, the carabiner makes a whole lot of sense. Now, David talked about this multi-tool specifically in our camping folders video that we talked about, and this multi-tool pretty much is mostly considered a camp-based one, but it has a lot of other features that I think come in handy on set. For example, we have here the panel for hammering things in. Sometimes if something's kind of falling apart on set and you have to hammer in the nail, I've worked with a lot of backdrops that were basically just thin sheets that needed to get mounted somewhere. You have a hex bit driver right here, which once again, you don't really ever know what kind of bit heads that you're going to be dealing with in the field. Nothing in video is pretty much standardized when it comes to hardware, so having that little extra bit there actually helps a lot. You get another combo edge blade. This one's a little bit broader than the one on the Skeletal. However, being that it's combo edge, it obviously has versatility in mind. I think it would work perfectly fine, especially if you want a more full multi-tool. This one also comes with a saw blade. Now, for those of you who are maybe doing nature documentaries or working in more remote locations, maybe you have to clear out smaller brush and things like that, the saw head would come in really handy. I'm also thinking in prop works. A lot of times prop makers work a lot with PVC. I've also dealt with sets that were being held up by PVC plumbing. The saw head would work if you had to shorten down something, especially at the last second. That's mostly where I could see that being used. You also get a diamond sharpener attachment. Once again, if you're doing more kind of field shooting for nature documentaries, maybe you work for the Discovery Channel and Survival Show, you're gonna have to maybe sharpen things on the fly there. For the pliers end of this, one of the things that's an obvious upgrade over the Skeletal is that the wire cutters are actually replaceable and they're 154 cm. It's a nice touch. I can't tell you how much you actually end up using the wire cutters on set, honestly, and the fact that, once they wear down, which, these things just wear down, it's nice the fact that I know that I can replace those over time. You also get your typical standard set of tools like an awl, can opener, and a screwdriver. Now, the screwdriver bit has one side flathead, one side Phillips head. Kind of limited in that, but however, you can buy other bits from Leatherman, and once again, considering the fact that you don't really necessarily know what equipment is going to need what kind of bit heads, I would recommend actually going ahead and spending the extra money and getting a full array of bit heads for, your Leatherman, personally. So that pretty much covers the pliers-based multi-tools with the Leathermans. However, maybe you're a little bit more old school, you watched too much MacGyver as a kid, you actually want to carry a Swiss Army knife on set, and we love Swiss Army knives here at the Knife Center. So here I have the KnifeCenter exclusive Pioneer X that we have in the red A-locks. Honestly, I could recommend just about any Swiss Army knife to be carrying on set. They're typically super compact, they carry a lot of utility for it, but the reason I'm talking about the Pioneer right now, or the Pioneer X specifically, is the scissors that come with it. Me and my associate producer Thomas will tell you that we have been asked numerous times on set, does anybody have a pair of scissors? Typically, these end up getting used to just kind of cut off like random threads off of wardrobe, typically with talent, but there's a million different uses you can have for scissors, and honestly, the fact that this comes with scissors is honestly one of the biggest gets. You get some of your other standard tools, your knife, your bottle opener, your can opener. Obviously, the Pioneer X does not come with a corkscrew. I've never needed a corkscrew on set personally, however, as David has mentioned in other videos, corkscrews can actually be very handy in untying knots. And I can see being out, once again, at a more remote location where you have to put up a giant sheet of diffusion and tying it off to a tree. And if you have a stubborn knot, it could come in handy to help untie it. So many different Swiss Army knives we carry. If there's a specific tool that you have in mind, there's probably a Swiss Army knife that is on the website for you. You can always check out our Swiss Army knife page and see all the stuff that we carry at KnifeCenter.com. So now that we're out of the multi-tool section of the video, now we can actually talk about folding knives. So the first folding knife that I want to talk about is actually the Benchmate Bugout. So the reason I'm talking about the Benchmate Bugout as great for video professionals is specifically just how thin and lightweight this knife is. When you consider the fact that, once again, your pockets are going to be taken up by batteries and a bunch of other kinds of things, this knife fits in your pocket so well, so unintrusive. This was originally designed with backpackers and hikers in mind, but it really became popular amongst EDC fanatics, and it's easy to see why. It's just how thin and how light this is, and for that reason I think would also work good for a video set. So obviously we get Benchmate's world famous access lock, which the first time I started using Benchmates, and I just completely fell in love with this lock. Completely ambidextrous, easy to get open, easy to get closed. It's all those kind of factors combined. Being able to get this knife out of your pocket, open, cut what I need to cut, and put back away is honestly one of the best things about it. Here we actually have the gray coated blade, which is made from S30B with rivalry handles, and it's the tan handles. The reason I'm showing this one off is because it's non-reflective. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a huge deal to have like satin or any other kind of reflective blade, but having something that's non-reflective might be better on set. I've worked a lot on television where cameras are basically just 360 around a round table. You don't want a light catching the blade and causing a reflection, distracting your talent or distracting your viewer. However, I don't think it's a hard fast rule, it's just something to consider. Talking specifically about the blade actually has a high flat grind, which is great for efficiency. Typically things that you would imagine that you're cutting on set typically might be cutting down strips of diffusion or gels to fix to your lighting with C37s. If you don't know what C37 is, Google it. So essentially that's kind of where I see this being used. Of course, you can also use it to strip wire. Another place where you might end up using a knife like this, I think, is specifically with gaff tape, especially if you have somebody newer on set. I've definitely had to loan knives before to people who didn't know how to tear it and use it correctly. Also, if you have to have like a precise piece of gaff tape as a marker, I've done that quite a bit as well. And essentially that's really where this blade really makes the biggest difference. And of course, you have your deep carry pocket clip for very unobtrusive carry in your pocket. Pretty much almost disappears in the pocket when you use this knife. Another knife I would actually recommend for somebody who is going to be working on set or out in the field is actually the Kershaw Leek. Now, we've talked ad nauseum about the Leek, or should I say David has talked ad nauseum about the Leek, because honestly, this really is just a great overall EDC design. And where I see this knife specifically working great on a video set is specifically for lighting designers or gaffers who specifically need to make a makeshift gobo. The fine tip on this Warncliffe style blade is very precise, so if you don't have an X-Acto knife on set trying to cut a gobo and trying to get nice broken up lighting, in a pinch this would work perfectly. Obviously here I have the full black washed version of the Leek with the braze welded D2 blade steel on here. Honestly, once again, the Leek has so many different options out there. It's really down to your preference. This follows that motif I talked about earlier of being very non-reflective for the most part. It's similar to the Bugout. It's very thin, it's unobtrusive in the pocket. A lot of the Leeks that we carry here at KnifeCenter run the gamut in terms of price. You can get one that is incredibly affordable all the way up to nicer ones like this that, even though they are technically a little bit higher up, they're still in a very affordable price range. Obviously, the Benchmate Bugout and the Leek are thinner EDCs. They're smaller knives for the most part. However, that doesn't mean you can't carry a full-size pocket knife. I carry a Benchmate Griptilian. I carry a ZT0562. Thomas carries a 0055. There's no hard, fast rule saying that you can't carry a full-size folding knife. However, when space is at a premium, having thinner, lighter weight knives like the Leek and the Benchmate Bugout really do make a difference. So the next thing that I want to talk about specifically is flashlights. Now, you might be wondering yourself, you're working on set with a whole bunch of lighting equipment, why the hell would you need a flashlight? Well, sometimes you're working on night shoots, and when your entire set is lit by very controlled lighting, everything behind it is completely pitch black dark. If you're somebody who specifically is the script supervisor, you need to be able to read the script. As such, it's nice to have some kind of flashlight. So for that, I have the Olight SR1 Baton 2. Once again, there's a couple of reasons to be featuring this flashlight specifically. Once again, it goes with that very compact theme that I was talking about. Very unobtrusive in the pocket. Honestly, this ends up being smaller than most knives I carry in terms of girth. But the thing I specifically like about this Olight is the fact that it's rechargeable. It comes with a rechargeable base that hooks up via USB, which is practically a universal plug-in at this point. It sits right there on a magnet base and it recharges the battery. What's great about this is that you have a flashlight that you don't need to dip into your precious battery supply. Batteries, once again, are at a premium. I'm carrying around 5 spare camera batteries at a time, a swath of AAAs or AA's to go into my audio recorders. I don't want to have to use my batteries for simple everyday carry stuff like this. I want it to make sure that it's dedicated to my gear, and as such, this is a great option for that reason. So another thing I really like about the SR1 is specifically, I can clip it to a ball cap. So this actually helps keep my hands free and lets me actually work on something. Once again, if I'm trying to set up a tripod or if I'm trying to fix something and I need both my hands, I could still have a light when I'm doing those kinds of things. So the last thing I want to show you isn't quite an EDC thing, more is something that you can throw into your bag, especially whenever you're going to be on set or on location. And that is the CRKT Twist and Fix tool. And this one specifically is the hex bit and Torx bit driver combo. And so the reason I have this in here goes back to the fact that, once again, you don't know what kind of hardware you're going to be dealing with in the field. I've worked with tripods that have used Torx bits. I've worked on tripods that use hex bits, shoulder rig mounts, for example. A lot of those things can basically vary widely on what kind of hardware they're used. This gives you a range of options that actually helps. So you have a set of Torx bits, you have a set of hex bits. They rotate up and down based on which one you want to use. You can also remove them from the housing, specifically to give you a little bit extra control. And essentially, it's just a nice little kind of convenient piece of kit. Typically, if you're using a limited amount of tools, they might not actually have hex bits or Torx bits that fit the right size. So this is a nice thing to throw into your bag. I would also take the time to maybe like check to see your personal equipment, and say if you're a one-man bander like I am, just to kind of see if these actually do fit your hardware. But regardless, I think this is a great option if you're looking for something that is, once again, gives you a little bit extra versatility when you're on set. And if nothing else, gives you something to play with while you're hurrying up and waiting, because honestly, that's what video ends up being. So that's all I have for you guys today. Now, this was in no way a comprehensive list of things that you absolutely have to have on a video set, just a group of things that I think are handy to have on set or specifically on location when you're shooting. If you're somebody who actually is into video work, what do you typically carry specifically as tools when you're out in the field? Go ahead and let us know down in the comments below, and get your hands on anything. Click the link in the description to head over to KnifeCenter.com.
Respect the office, that's all I'm saying.
I'm doing this on the fly, people.
Using that. Like David never left.
Ow. Son of a... If this is getting garbage, you have to let me know.
Oh, no.